It went from stem cells to pluripotential cells to postnatal tissue graft. And then we keep hearing this exosome word.
The real definition of an exosome will be a nanoparticle to prevent the bastardization of a lot of the science.
Yeah.
Exosome has fallen into that category, unfortunately, because a lot of people now, well, we have 1 billion exosomes. We should focus on just making people as healthy as we can get them. The cell would seem like a really, really good biologic hack. Welcome to the Zero Downside Podcast with Dr. Wade McKenna, sponsored by MoabTexas.com.
Exosomes. It is the hot. It went from stem cells to pluripotential cells to postnatal tissue graft. And then we keep hearing this exosome word. And I always have patients, and I know Hannah gets it all the time. Well, how many cells, how many exosomes are in the graft?
Because I got 100 billion out of the country.
Yes. So how,
like the number matters is like 100 billion what? Right? Like
Exosomes. 100
billion me, 100 billion 10-year-olds, right? Like 100 billion what? Like
the thought of more than one of you, by the way, is horrifying.
To me too, right? Like
you're a full-time job, man.
and I have three of me.
Yeah.
Right. Because my daughters, man, the 11-year-old who just turned 11. So Tess is, and she's beautiful like her mommy, but boy, she has got that little, way too big for her
Cherokee
own britches.
Irish fire, man, whatever it is.
She's like, I'm a big, obviously.
She's
I'm
a
big fan of all
humble
three of my
know-it-all.
daughters.
I will say that. She's a humble know-it-all.
Oh, she's beautiful
in front of
and
everyone.
talented and
Yes.
smart. And she's been enabled by her two older sisters. And by the way, my oldest, who is like mini me, which is why we sometimes do this, and she wants to kill me, man. And I want to throw her off. But she's a lawyer.
Yeah.
Right. Not a moron. And she was smarter than me because she didn't go to med school and have to fight this fight against non-science people. Right. And so she became, one of the things that she became a lawyer for, and initially she saw a lot of the stuff we were going through against the FDA when she was little. Yeah. She got to hear all the narrative about marrow and stem cells. She was with me in a Home Depot when someone came up to me because we're in a small town, in line at Home Depot, and a guy comes up to me and says, "Dr. McKenna, thank you so much. Oh my God, you made me walk in. My tendon's completely healed. Can you use stem cells to do it?" And the stem cell part of this was so brilliant. Thank you so much. And hugs me and walks out. And my daughter's like, guy behind us says, "Oh my God, I don't agree with killing babies." And my daughter's like, and because he heard the word stem cells, like, killing babies. I don't know. He gets his arms crossed. I don't know how you, and my daughter's like, my dad would never kill a baby. And the guy goes, "Well, honey, if he's using stem cells." I said, "No, I made an incision. I took his stem cells from bone marrow and helped him heal. There are no killing of babies involved in any stem cell science in the history of clinical surgery in the United States. And I would never do that." And for you to say that in front of I think Meg was probably 10, for you to say that in front of a 10-year-old and demonstrates an incredible lack of composure. Mm-hmm. We had that discussion. And so Meg right then, she developed this righteous indignation. And I think that her fight against the FDA, her fight against the narrative, her fight against the big corporate stuff is really heartfelt. And she did really well in law school and has got her first big girl job now. My senior in college, at Oklahoma State University, which had a pretty good weekend, I think. Did we cover that already?
Shameless plug. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Sorry. Go ahead.
She's brilliant, and she's getting a degree in psychology and neuroscience, and she's looking at something in the medical field maybe. And so for me, I think that living with me part has been pretty difficult, but that's the best use of stem cell. That's the real stem cell therapy, right? So
let's get back to it then.
Babies.
I like to poke. I like to poke.
Circle back around.
Yeah.
So the Jin Saki. Oh God. So
full circle.
Don't do that.
But it is full cycle. But it is full cycle, right? So that was the ultimate stem cell use. So made babies with it.
Yeah.
But anywho.
Exosomes. Right. That's the word I like to watch you flinch your eye roll. It's really fun.
Because I really like that word.
Well, break it
It
down
was
for
a
us.
good word, but
It was
it's
such a great.
Let's unpack that.
Let's unpack that. I love that. But that's my favorite show. I think that because if you've seen anything I was saying 15 years ago when we started publishing and lecturing and using a lot of bone marrow, if you've seen any of that, you've heard me describe an exosome by about 20 different terms: microvesicles of support, the secretome of the cell, microvessels, growth factors, secretory proteins. All that is probably grouped together into a category now we would just call an exosome. And an exosome, it should be, the real definition of an exosome would be a nanoparticle between 0.35 nanometers in sphericity, up to about 1.6, maybe 2.4, maybe as small as 0.25, but probably around 0.35 to about 1.6. And it depends on how you, that's the problem. It depends on how you define exosome as to how you would even count them. We didn't even really have a way of counting. Again, this is a term that didn't exist 10 years ago when we were talking about secretory proteins and microvesicles of support and the secretome. Exosome is how a stem cell works. It's what that particle, that packet of material secreted by the cell. Is it just a growth factor? No. A lot of it's messenger RNA. Is it a spear? Yes. And it has to be lyophilized. It has to be coated in fat and spherical shaped and secreted. So that term exosome. But when someone says I got 100 billion exosomes, who named it? What exosome particle was it? What cells did they come from? How big of what did they? Because there are a lot of people that cheat. We're going to call an exosome, even if it's not a spear, if it's half of a spear, like it's a
fragment.
It's a fragment, right? So now instead of a full moon, it's half moon or it's a crescent moon. Is that an exosome? No. Are you allowed to call it an exosome?
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask. Like, what is the regulatory on that? Like, has anybody clearly defined that this manufacturer has?
There is a point where I'm a fan of a lot of regulation to prevent the bastardization of a lot of the science.
Yeah.
Exosome is fallen into that category, unfortunately, because a lot of people now, well, we have 1 billion exosomes. Well, are they all spherical? Are they all lyophilized? And how big are they? If you're counting down to 0.35, 0.25, you're counting up to 0.24, are all those exosomes? No. Now, are we missing some exosomes if we go down to 0.35 to 0.16? Sure. But there's a way higher percentage of that we're counting as an exosome, an actual exosome. Yeah. If you go up to 0.24, like 3, if you go up to 2.4 nanometers, or if you go up to 3, there's some of those particles and stuff that aren't exosomes, right? But you can label it that if you're the one defining it, and you're the one defining it when you're the one that packages it.
Yeah.
So do I trust every lab that packages it and calls it an exosome? No, I don't. Yeah. And how do I know that? Well, I went to medical school. I've looked under a microscope, and I'm not afraid to go visit the lab. I want them to quantify it. I want to see their cell counts. I want to see what they're counting. I want to see the tissue it came from. I want to see their sterility data, because I would use all that. Now, if I'm a patient, would I have to spend a lot of time to be able to quantify and figure that out? Yeah, I don't know that a layperson can.
Well, it's marketing genius, right?
Yeah.
It's like whenever in the 90s they said our gasoline has Techron. Well, all gasoline has Techron, but they literally put it on the handle for the pump.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I truly see it as a marketing genius, because what it did was it allowed a lot of these, I'll just say,
non-cellular allografts.
Well, aesthetic companies to market to estheticians and nurses that were
and really it was and it
office.
Helped them to be able to say we don't have live cells.
Yes. And then it was also,
but that's not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, it was a drug to them,
and maybe to the FDA.
Yes,
right, because the FDA doesn't want you calling something that, firstly, they don't want you using live cellular tissue unless it's an FDA approved manner. That's one of the things that drives me crazy. If people really want to look at how really screwed up the definition of stem cells, even in the countries, Panama, Colombia, Caymans, where they were talk about cultured postnatal tissue graft. If you have cancer, a history of cancer, pre-existing, are they going to treat you? No. Why? Because the narrative is that my stem cells can make your cancer grow. No, wait a minute. Really? No, right? There's no paper showing that. Now, there's one paper that talked about transferrin growth factor beta 1. That's how they got the cancer literature out there that stem cells could cause that. Because transferrin growth factor beta 1 can be secreted by the cell. Does it stay transferrin growth factor beta 1 in the human body? No, it doesn't. It's not a thing. It's beta 2. It turns to beta 3 very fast. It's a big conjugate protein. Does it cause cancer? No. In the US, if you stored your placenta and your umbilical cord, and I have all 3 of my daughters' umbilical cords and placenta stored, I paid the money. In 97, my oldest daughter was born in 97, and I have her umbilical cord, placenta, and all of her cord blood. Why? Because I knew, just like Big Pharma knew in the 80s when they started putting out they're killing babies because they want to taint the water so much that maybe they could, don't look over here, nothing to see, right? Like, well, people hear stem cell go, killing babies, and they immediately turn away from that. But that's what they paid for that, and they got it, right? But when I did that, was I thinking that there would be a great use for it someday? Sure. Has it turned into that? No. Can I get a part of my daughter's umbilical cord, culture those cells up, and squirt them in my knee for the arthritis?
Absolutely
no.
not.
What does the FDA do with that graft now? Well, they will let you use it for an FDA-approved diagnosis to use it in. If you go to the Cord Blood Bank Registry's website and you pull up FDA-approved uses for those cells, where the FDA will let you get that bone marrow or that umbilical cord cell and the marrow, the cord blood, what will they let you use it for? What are the only FDA-approved uses on CBR's website? They're all cancer, leukemias, lymphomas.
I thought you just said we couldn't do it because it spread cancer or made it worse, right?
Wow, that seems to be discongruous thought.
Very ironic.
Isn't it ironic? Don't you think? Right? I mean, not to quote
Alanis Morissette, the famous Canadian singer. Yes, yeah, thank you.
But now we're quoting Alanis Morissette on a stem cell podcast. I don't know how she's going to feel about that. But
I'm very glad you answered that, though. That is a lot of patience questions.
Think about that. Let's think about that for a second. The only FDA-approved use of umbilical cord blood and cells in the U.S. is cancer patients.
The thing that we said that we're not allowed to use.
The thing that we're not allowed, the thing that those other clinics would never use, because we don't treat. Here's the thing, here's where we need to get with the use of culturally expanded tissue graft. And there may be an option for this in the very near future for people in another country. Where we need to get is you're not treating a disease. Because for every cancer, there's someone that survived it. Look, here's the worst and best news ever. Everyone in this room has cancer of every minute of every day. Mm-hmm. But your body, your cells, your immune system do a really good job of winning and killing that cancer, because cancers are it's the runt of the litter. Mm-hmm. A cancer cell is not as strong as a good healthy cell.
It's a free radical cell, right?
They're mutagenic, right? Yeah. They're abnormal. Like there was a problem in the transcriptase and it got some abnormal mutation. There's not a lot of mutations that are stronger than the host.
Yeah.
They aren't. You have to be immune compromised. You have to be injured in the area. You have to nutritionally be not sound. Hormonally, something's wrong where that cancer is allowed to set up. And then it's very difficult to kill once it seals itself up in a cocoon. But in most tumors, there's what's been published for a really long time is in most big solid care tumors, there's really less than 100 cells you'd have to get rid of the tumor. The problem is that because of cortisol, chronic fatigue, whatever metabolic you're going through, your body can't meet the demand. Right. But most of it, just by there's zero chance that everyone in this room doesn't have some cancer cell right now, but it's not going to kill you because your body's going to beat it because it's not very healthy. And your body, if you maintain good health. So really what we should focus on is not treating a disease. We should focus on just making people as healthy as we can get them. The cell would seem like a really, really good biologic hack to give you access to 7,000 peptides, proteins, growth factors, exosomes that I can't give you in any other way. You know, we talked about peptide therapy. I can write you a script for about, I don't know now, because the FDA banned a lot of this November 1st. They made it a Schedule 2, which means banned substance. So I don't even know if FDA, but let's say theoretically, before November 1st, these cells can secrete 7,000. There are 7,000 naturally occurring peptides, proteins in the human body. The cells secrete all those. I could write you a script for about 40, right? But I would have to know what you need, what it is I'm treating, and where to put those and how to dose it to be able to help you with that. Do I have to know that when I put cells somewhere? No. The cells, your body does. Just like we talked about with Achilles. I take stem cells, inject them. We did bone marrow aspirate concentrate, injection the Achilles tendon. The tendon completely remodeled and healed.
Yeah.
Did it do that? How? Did it become tendon? No. Did it secrete everything your tendon needed to heal and remodel? Yes. So the cell, when you radioisotope tag those cells and stick them in a tendon, did all those cells become cells of a tendon? No. About 10% maybe incorporated in the tendon. The rest of them travel around, but they secreted everything you need to heal. So do I think that it's going to come down to why are stem cells controversial, right? That's what this episode is supposed to be about. I have no idea.
Could you touch on real quick on how you used to say it, and I totally forgot it, but it was that one phrase about overpopulating.
Too many mouths to feed, not enough food, right? So when we talk about numbers, like numbers, obviously, we just go back to the point. Numbers of exosomes may not be that important because, again, we don't even know what they're calling an exosome. But
Techron.
Techron, and number of cells may not even be that important because you know what? Not all cells are created equal. Like, what if we could, in a perfect world, optimize your cells, stress them enough? Hypoxia, nitrogen-rich environment, makes the stem cell bigger and better. Ozonation of the tissue graft. You could make the cell, all that's illegal, but you could use ozone. You could use hypoxic creation of the tissue. You could gamma radiation, low millirad gamma has been used on stem cells in the lab and research for a long time because it makes them more prolific. Doesn't alter the cells, doesn't make it cancerous, but it makes it more prolific, but it doesn't change what it does. It doesn't change the epigenetic potential secretions of the cell, but it does increase its potential. You can make it better. So what I would want if I'm going to train for a fight is I wouldn't stick me in a jiu-jitsu ring with you. I don't know jiu-jitsu. I would train with you for a long time and let you teach me jiu-jitsu and then maybe use jiu-jitsu. It seemed like there would be a way to do that with tissue. Like you could take the cells that aren't really active and don't want to do a lot, or that are really unfocused but prolific, and maybe get them coached up to address a problem. That would be a really cool idea.
If only.
If only.
Sounds like a great idea.
Sound like a great idea. Like I really.
Not in the United States.
No, of course not.
Okay. I had to throw it out there.
But since we can't do that, do we have to be limited in the U.S.? No stem cells in the U.S. No, that's not true, right? Bone marrow aspirate concentrate as a cellular allograft has been widely used for over 20 years with great published data, amazing success. The comparisons with traditional use without it, there's not even close. The infection rate lowers in every study ever published. Yes, stem cells in the U.S. are a thing. It's silly to talk about not being able to use cells to help you heal in surgery. It's silly to talk about no cells can be used in cosmetics. Now, do I think that concentrated umbilical cord tissue graft or postnatal tissue graft used to treat a lot of systemic illnesses, is that a big wide thing in the U.S. and is it really legal to talk about and address? Not really, right? So I think that that's where the narrative changes when you're talking about why is it so controversial? Because you would have to culture the tissue graft to get those cells up to speed, to get enough to matter, and then the systemic administration of those cells. But there are clinics that have published really good studies on MS pretty much autoimmune diseases, right? So if you're broken, and this is what we talk about all the time.
All right.
So I don't think you should ever talk about stem cells to treat a disease. I think you should talk about it to provide optimal health. Is there a way, because that's what we're doing when we're doing it for failure, fractures, and unions. We're just helping your body do a better job of what it wanted to do.
Yeah.
You could do that, you would think, to treat, instead, if you have cancer and I could make you healthy enough to fight back, but instead, what we do in the US is we kill you. We ruin your immune system, and we try to kill the cancer with a drug. It would make a lot of sense to where, again, for every cancer, there's someone that survived it, right? It would make a lot of sense if what if I just made you the best killing machine you could be, and then give me a fighting chance against any disease, against any fracture, against any chronic tendon injury. Give me a fighting chance at mounting a healing response. How can I do that? Well, I need to get you nutritionally and hormonally optimized. I need to get you as healthy as I can get you. And maybe I could help you with your cellular volume and mobilizing that tissue to the site of injury to help you with that. If the site of injury is your immune system, I'm going to have difficulty treating that in the US. If the site of failure is a disc, a tendon, I don't think we have difficulty providing treatment in the US. So is the stem cell controversy? Not really. Is the stem cell science controversial on what we can treat? Maybe in this country. Is the stem cell controversy of, can it make a difference? No. Can it cause you cancer? Look, there's not been a study published that shows that, right? There's been plenty of, if you go to DuckDuckGo, or if you're not on Google, Bing, Yahoo, or even YouTube, because we'll probably get canceled over this. If you, right?
It's been fun, thanks.
I'm sure we've already been, there would be episodes where we show 3,400 users and we have 200 something subscribers. Like, how's that work, right? Like, the shadow banning's not a thing. Anyway, if I could just make everyone their best self, would you stand a chance at being able to kill cancers and be healthier? Yeah, right. Should that be controversial? No.
Never.
But you know what? You know what should be controversial? Giving you a poison that's not natural made. You know what we're not doing? Using cells that, like, I love it when people talk. My kid even said one time when they were little, and obviously it's not true, but my kid one time was talking. There's, what does your daddy do? And my kid, and she was like 7, and she's like, well, daddy invented stem cells. I'm like, no, sweetie, no. I developed a way to harvest marrow, and but what does stem cells have to do with that? Well, then we can take the adult stem cells out of your marrow and use them. Oh, well, who owns the intellectual property on the stem cells from postnatal tissue graft or from bone marrow if it's not turned into a drug? Well, God does, right? I mean, like, who invented that? The body already has it in it. So we're not using a foreign substance on you. I didn't make something in a lab to give it to you to see if I can get an unnatural response for something your body didn't have contact with. This isn't a nutrient. It's not a peptide. It's not a protein. It's not a cell. It's something abnormal. And we're giving you this because it's going to have a reaction. We're hoping that reaction is the therapeutic to what we wanted you to have. But are there a reason that you want the rainforest to stay? Yeah. You know why? Because all those naturally occurring proteins and enzymes and stuff, we don't know all those. And they take a lot of those and turn them into drugs because they could help people do what some of the plants do. They overcome fungal infections. They overcome that. But those were naturally occurring, right? And they're turned into drugs. Did we make that in a lab and inject it into someone? No. Do I think that should be way more controversial than taking a cell and giving it to you that's ethically sourced and no babies died in the creation of the city? Because again, those cells want to become a fetus. We wouldn't do that. Have there been fetal grafts used in other countries? Yeah, they treat some stem cell grafts. Are there some research to take your stem cell and try to grow a cell from it abnormally? You can take a myocyte and grow it and inject it in a vocal cord and heal those. do I think that's the best science in art? No. Like I think I would have a tissue with mutagenesis. I have a problem with the potential for creation of cancer. And there's some studies published where they injected these cells in the back, and these what's called a teratoma. It's a tumor that develops that has teeth and hair in it. Mm-hmm. Like it's an abnormal cell, right? And so it gets prolific. Like, have we ever created those with bone marrow split concentrate? No. Can it do that? No. Are you going to create that with ethically sourced, undifferentiated postnatal tissue graft? No. That was fetal tissue. Have we done that in the US? No. So, I mean, so when you, again, if the purpose of this episode is why are stem cells controversial? Can you have an allergic reaction? Like 20 years in, to still be having this talk,
it's mind-blowing, isn't it?
Drives me more than a little crazy.
I think it's a wild misuse of, it's a waste of potential where the science behind this could be furthered to benefit a lot of people, making them well, making them better. Instead,
creation of the best you. Don't treat a disease, treat a person.
Yes.
If I get you healthy, can you heal your tendon? Yeah. If we get you healthy, can you overcome cancer? Yep. Why is it not okay to get you healthy? Because it's not a drug. Like, look, there's doctors, we just addressed this last week. We had a doctor tell a patient all doing vitamins does is give you really expensive urine. What? Like, seriously, dude? Like,
yeah,
come on. Like, the only thing that everyone died of COVID had in common is D3 levels below 20. You know what that means? We don't take enough D3. Like if there's a big viral outbreak, there's something going on, you need flu season, you need to up the amount of D3 you take. You know why? Because you don't want your immune system to be missing a beat. The D3, that level doesn't mean that D3 does something magic. It's just an indirect measure of your immune function. It's a really cheap, easy way to measure your immune function. If your D3 level is below 20, your immune system is missing a beat, right? But all D3 does is give you really expensive urine. Like, well, read a book, man. I mean, like, do something that's outside of the person you work for's paradigm of treatment. I get you work for Baylor. I get you work for Tech Resource. I get you work for Big Pharma. I get where who's paying you the check doesn't let you talk about nutritional therapy. But that doesn't mean it's you trash it and you become non-scientific in your religious fervor against a vitamin. Like, well, the FDA doesn't control it. No bioavailability. You know what? Drop it in a glass of water, see if a pill dissolves. If you see a pill in your stool, don't take that one anymore. Right? Like, right? If you're pooping out pills, that guy was right. That wasn't a very good vitamin. Yeah. Right? But are there a lot of really good bioavailable liposomal coated vitamins out there? Yeah. Like, does that mean no one should take them? Like, do you think you're just eating perfectly? Do you even think it's possible to only get what your body needs from a grocery store anymore with all the processed foods, not growing the vitamin, even if you're growing the vegetables in your own garden, what pesticides did you use? Right? Like Gary DeBruck, he got canceled because he took strawberries, condensed it down to the juice and measured the pesticide content in it. And there was enough pesticides to grow a whole nother crop. And he got canceled for that.
In a small sample size.
So excuse me, that was my theory and quoting someone else that had, but does modern medicine hate him? Yeah. You know why? Because he talks about how to get away from a lot of treatment that hurts people. I think that was my phone. But
all good.
But anyway, we're on another tangent.
Yeah.
But all this is really winds up into, why is it controversial to help you do better? I have no idea.
So I think the greatest travesty of our lifetime, right, so far where we're at, is I've got almost 20 years in the medical field. I've worked with hundreds of doctors. I've been involved in hundreds of lab procedures, labs, orthopedics, everything. You name it, I've seen it. The tools made available to your average medical provider are extremely limited, and most of them actually cause more trauma than healing, right? So think about the surgical process minus cells. If we think about steroid injections in the joint, which I will not let you get started on because that's a whole nother episode.
Yeah.
But all
actually,
these
that could be an episode.
Yes.
Steroids are catabolic and they kill protein. Let's just get that out there right now.
Yes. So to my point, the biggest travesty of all those things that I've just said is that you are considered a pioneer, a pariah, a frontier guy. You're the outlier, and you're not inventing anything new.
Yeah.
But so here's the issue, right? You're not coming out and saying, I invented the stem cell, much to your 7-year-old at the time's chagrin.
Yeah.
The thing is that you're taking what's already available in nature, in the human biome itself, and you're putting it where it's needed most as a resource, right? You're not inventing anything new. Now the processes in your IP
trying to get your body to do what it wants.
Yes.
I'm putting things back on your body's to-do list because it's focused on your brain, your heart, your lungs, your gut. Like your gut's 90% of your immune system, right? So your body's, it let go of your ankle inflammatory change a long time ago.
Yeah.
You got a bad ankle, your body's like, hey, I'm going to make sure you're bipedal. Does that mean you can play in the NFL? No, your body's not worried about if you can play in the NFL. It's worried about, can you maintain mobility? It wants to do a lot. It will mobilize a lot just to keep you bipedal and mobile. Yeah. But is it going to care you can cut and run really fast? Nope. You need optimal function for that. How would you do that? Oh my gosh, there's a really good way to help you be optimal functioning and lower the inflammatory rate, secrete the regenerative peptides and proteins, and control the immune dysfunction. Yeah. Again, there's one cell that can do those 3 things. And you cannot believe in it, but that doesn't mean it's not a thing. Right? Oh, is there a randomized white paper study with double control? No, and there wasn't on anything that's been administered to most of the country right now either. There's not a double-blind randomized controlled safety data on the 39 injections children have to get to graduate school. There's not double-blind safety data on the injection that the entire world was given. But there was bad science on that. Is there bad science on the way the cell works? No. Do I need a double-blind randomized controlled 500-patient study with 10-year follow-up to understand the pathogenesis of a disease and the pathophysiology, the way your body wants to do it, and the science behind what these cells secrete? No. If there's really good science behind it, I'm okay with it because it's how the body's working right now. I'm not trying to change the way the body functions or works. I'm giving it what it needs to work better. I'm okay with that. I don't need 500 patient double-blind study. When someone says, hey, what do you think about this? There are plenty of times that I say no. And then I'll do a deep dive. It'll be the middle of the night. I'll get up in the middle of the night and start, and I'll get on some deep pathway and I'll go through some bibliography and I'll find 20 other articles and take me to 3 other articles. And all of a sudden you go, wow, if we did put cells there and then we could and they secreted enough of this, you could literally break the enzyme for the decay and the inflammatory load and maybe help get rid of some of the scarring. That would make this person better. Wow. If I can understand the pathophysiology of something and rationally think that you stand a chance of getting it, because I never want to waste anyone's money. Like people go, well, can't I just pay and have you do this? I'll be like, yeah, but I don't want to waste resources, right? Like, I don't know that that's a really good use of your dollar. Let's try it. Let's get you nutritionally. Let's do some hormone stuff. Let's see where we can get you first and see if we can, mobilize it. But there are plenty of people. That's the way we got to where we are. There's plenty of people that say, look, I trust this already. I've done all I just want you to take those cells and you can help me do this and I'm going to do this and this. And I'll be like, well, I'm willing to join your journey with you, right? As long as I know that I'm not going to hurt you. And am I going to hurt anyone with this? No. Can I cause a disease? No. Am I going to make you get infected or not heal? No, because I know what I'm doing, right? And I'm not going to stick a needle into a nerve or into a vessel. I'm not going to pretend to be somewhere I'm not. I'm going to prove where we are when we do it. So, you asked a really good question. And I know I haven't really given you an answer because when you say, why are they controversial? Well, again, what are we talking about as a stem cell? I think we've covered now bone marrow. We didn't talk about fat today. We did talk about a lot of different postnatal tissue graft. We talk about exosomes. Do I think all those are controversial? No. Do I think that the business model can be? Yes. Do I think that some of the clinics and the way people talk about it, and is there a lot of charlatans out there pretending to be scientific? Yes. Are some of those still really lucky because this is, if you have the cell, this really can be good in spite of someone, right? You can do maybe the right thing. A bad person can do the right thing and get a good result. You can do, you can not know what you're doing And you know what's the old saying? A blind pig finds an acorn every now. Oh, no, a blind squirrel finds an acorn. A blind pig finds a truffle. Right?
Yes.
So a blind squirrel finds an acorn occasionally. Right? But do I think that you need to approach science that way? Absolutely not. I think you need to really work hard to know what you're doing, know what graph you're using and why, and know the pathogenesis of why you hurt. And is there a way the cell could make that better, or surgery or non-surgery, anti-inflammatories, or just stretches, or getting your hormone levels where they need to be, or nutritionally supplementing you. So, still some cells we haven't talked about, but I think that when you talk about, all these outside the U.S. clinics, and you talk about, Panama, Colombia, and do I think they're hurting people? No. Do I think that they have a service available with culturally expanded tissue? Now they can't do. Now here's the thing: those laws were all written before you could do anything to optimize those cells, but you can culturally expand them. But again,
you're referring to the individual laws in each of those countries that you mentioned, right? So you're hampered by what that government in that country allows you to do with those cells. If only there was a government that sought out, that was really mad about the narrative and what got perpetrated on them, and they would allow not only cultural expansion, but the augmentation and agitation of cellular volume to perform at its best level. That would be really cool.
That would be really cool. I feel like you're alluding to something.
And probably
maybe we'll find out soon.
It would probably have to be something manufactured in the U.S. under U.S. tissue graft laws. That's the other thing we didn't even talk about. When we talk about safety and efficacy, look, labs are not. We're not using amnion that I made in my garage, right? Like, first of all, God made it. Like, the human body made it. It's a human tissue. It's it's uniquely capable of, in the U.S., the only approved use of these cells is for cancer patients. And no other country will treat a cancer patient with the cells that are only allowed to be used for cancer in the U.S. But in the U.S., the narrative is also these cells could cause cancer. No, wait a minute. If they're causing cancer, why are you using it to treat cancer, right? Like, you go to CBR's website. The only approved uses of these cells are cancer patients, different kinds of leukemia and lymphoma. So you can use them to treat it, but it causes it. Pick a side.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if only.
If only. Yeah. And hopefully maybe one day soon.
Maybe one day soon.
Well, I hope this really cleared up maybe some of the controversies that happen with stem cells. And you gained a little bit of insight, because we're still a big old question mark on our faces. I can see it. There's an answer, but it's an obvious answer.
This is a really obvious,
yeah.
Man, someone makes a lot of money by not letting you heal, right?
Boom.
If the body can heal itself, there's a third of the GDP that's being wasted right now. And look, here's my side. And I'm literally like, I'm a politically conservative, but a social liberal, or at least moderate. Because I think the government needs to leave us all alone and give the money back to the states, because you can knock on your state representative's door, but once everyone goes to Washington, after about the second term for sure, they're just like everyone else, and they're supporting. They should have to wear jackets like race car drivers. Right? They should have to have patches on who where. That way you know who they're running for. Who are you? Who's paying for your race car? Right? I want to know that. But
maybe we can just start by not letting them be there for their lifetime.
But it's really.
But anyway, it's about health,
right? Yeah. This is a health podcast.
Think of what we could do. Think of what we could do if we weren't wasting a third of our GDP. We could buy laptops for all the kids. We could have tutors. We could pay teachers what they need to be paid. We could provide the social services. We wouldn't have a homeless problem. But we're wasting a third of our GDP that goes into corporate pockets where the same people own them all. And and they don't care. People say, well, why would insurance want to waste their money? Because it's owned by the same people that they're paying. The healthcare providers are all owned by someone. The people that owns them are owned by the same people. So between insurance and the orthopedic manufacturers and the drug companies and the healthcare industry, they want a third of the GDP. And it's wasted on corporate profits and the bureaucracy and running all that, when really we could think of way better things. When you spend billions of dollars on a vaccination that didn't keep you from getting the disease, didn't keep you from giving it to someone, it didn't make you more likely to survive if you got it. Now that's all published now. Billions of dollars. Can anyone that's listening or watching this think of a better use for billions of dollars in large cities all over our country that have bad crime problems, lots of homeless people, and we have vets living on the street, people that fought for our country? I can think of a way better use for billions of dollars. But that narrative, like they just want to be a third of the GDP. And I think a lot of that money, do I think all of it's wasted? Absolutely not. I mean, I'm a doctor, right? And I'm a surgeon. I still do surgery. Do I think that we hurt everyone? No, I think that modern medicine is fantastic. I'm proud to be a part of it most of the time. But do I think that a lot of healthcare dollars are wasted? Yes. Do I think there would have been a better use for a lot of that? Absolutely. So
well,
anyway.
Thank you, Dr. McKenna, for being you.
I hope that if nothing else, I think that I hate spending a whole episodes talking and answering to trolls. But some of these people are good intentioned, right? Like I think that there are some people that really feel righteous indignation that if they're going to kill babies, I'm going to fight against it. No one's doing that. Join our side. You're on our side already. You just don't know it yet, right? That's kind of how I feel when we have an argument with someone. I kind of feel like, look, unless you are a majority shareholder in Pfizer or one of the large insurance companies, I genuinely feel like you're on our side already. You just don't know it, and that if we educate you enough, there's going to be a light in the tunnel moment where you're going to go, wait a minute. I just heard on that commercial this can cause cancer. And it could make me die of TB. But I was watching the first minute of the commercial with people dancing and paragliding. And I didn't listen to the last 15 seconds that this may cause cancer. But we're not saying that about tissue graft, are we? No. So I don't know, maybe, right? Maybe, I think most people are already on our side and just don't know it.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. This has been a great episode. And we will see you guys on the next one.
And again, my last sign off, and I mean this as genuinely and passionately as I can, as I want to oppose the narrative out there, is that we genuinely appreciate your trust. I think I've worked really hard to put together a staff that we love and trust, and that love and trust our patients. And we genuinely appreciate the opportunity to take care of you. So thank you.